Challenge yourself. Do something that you never thought you could do. Even if you do it badly, the fact is that you just do it. Just challenge yourself.
Hello and welcome to The Secret of My Success. This is a space where we explore what it means to live a fulfilling life. I'm your host, Erin Curran. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would like to welcome Craig Duncan today to our space. I'll tell you a little bit about Craig and then we're going to dive in. Craig is an employment specialist professional. He holds a master's of science in higher education and combination with a life coach certification. He has extensive experience working in social services and diversity and inclusion communities. He also has vast knowledge and experience working with individuals with disabilities, and he believes that we are all differently able in one way or another. Craig's ultimate goal is placing the right client in a job that gives him purpose, him or her, and is a fit for both the company and the client. Craig has also trained, developed, and led seminars to hundreds of people globally to produce exceptional results in their personal and professional lives. His mission is to empower people to fulfill their dreams and live life to their fullest potential. Craig, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, wow, my pleasure. Thank you. You read that, I'm wondering, who is that guy? Thank you.
Well, I've known you for several years through Landmark, and I know that you really are like a rock star. You have always just been so warm and welcoming and just such an amazing space for people. And so when I saw the opportunity to invite you, I jumped right on that. So
Oh,
thank you.
well, yeah, I've known you for a while, so it's great to be in this space with you. I like the term space rather than area where we can co-create whatever is happening in that moment. So really, thank you for the space.
You're, you're very welcome. Well, let's see what we can fill the space with today. What can we create? So if you'd like, just take a couple of minutes and fill us in, start us in an area, and we'll go from there.
Well, as you said, everything that you said about people living the life of their dream, I think we should lead by example. And so I think the work starts really with myself, like loving myself, listening to myself, actually speak and listen to myself. I know they say you should never answer, but yeah, I do speak and listen to myself. And, recently at age 40, I'm now older than that, 3 years ago, I decided to take on swimming. I just always look at the water, always thought it would be a good idea. Always think, I want to. And, maybe eventually go swim with some whales. And, I got to the pool and I started this class. And the instructor, she said to me, relax. And I'm like, look at my size. Do you see my size? You cannot relax. This is rock. We will sink. And, I just remember still pushing myself, going even on off day of class, even when it was raining and going. And I remember the experience of my eyes looking at the ceiling and I saw for myself, I was floating. I couldn't believe that this body could actually float, right? And I went one day and I was looking, I was getting the water, but very intimidated. And I saw this guy just going up and down, up and down. And I'm like, wow, I'm not going in this water because if this person, they're going to laugh at me. So the person stopped and I noticed the person was blind. And I'm like, really? So I just look at myself, how we hold ourselves back about opinions and who is seeing us and who is thinking about. And at the same time, they don't even see us literally in this case, right? So it just really continued to help me to fulfill that I have to be a demonstration of the life that I want people to say, go for it. And a week and a half ago, I did another thing, which was skiing. I went to to Lake Tahoe in California, and man, that was something else. So I, paid for a class and got my skis with some great friends, and fell a few times, well, more than a few times, and just really had a great time. And then I looked at this amazing slope in Heavenly. And I'm like, wow, that would be great. And so I was having lunch with my friends. And like, oh yeah, good, because that's where you're going next. And I'm like, no, 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 no. And then as I'm going to the lift to get up to this slope, and I see a sign. The sign says no first timers. And I'm like, this is my way out. I'm like, guys, the sign says no first. Like, shut up. You're going. You got this. And they brought me up, and I looked down, and I'm like, no, 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 no. This is not happening. But it was good that I had friends around me who pushed me in. I fell and I got up and I resisted and I complained, and eventually I did make it now, which is a good news. But that story just remind me of the limitations that we put on ourselves because of age, the limitation based on where we're from. If I look back at my life, and I do, when I do look back at my life, I sometimes pinch myself that I'm actually where I am. And it hasn't been, I could say I go skiing and I put my tagline, I don't know yet how to record myself falling. If I could record myself falling, I'd probably put that picture up because I want people to know it's messy. It's not I get up and I'm going to that mountain. It can be that at first. And then it's like a bad idea at some time after that. And I hurt my knees. I have boots burn on my shin, and I shit out with my friends. And but I'm telling you, the experience looking back, the aliveness, the sense of accomplishment that I gave myself permission. When I was going, I spoke to one of my friend about it. She's like, "Oh, so just so that you know, the first time I went, I held on to my instructor and I wouldn't let him go. And then the second time I went, I ran into one person who ran into 10 persons. And then another friend said, oh, and I broke both of my legs the first time I went. This was not a good setup for me. But that, regardless of what those conversations are around us, regardless of what the opinion is that one allows, and I'm using the word that one allows oneself. And, sometimes the biggest enemy is yourself. But that you put yourself in an environment, you put yourself in situation, you connect with people, whether they're around you or not, you seek those people that will pull you along. My friend said, commit to the curve. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to turn. There's no curve here. I cannot commit to something. But I get the sense of what it was. You're like, if you go on the slope and you feel hot, unzip yourself and ventilate and don't get wet. Because if you get wet with sweat, it's not going to. I would have never thought about it. And your pants, zip them down and zip them up. But people around us, and they are there, by the way. I think oftentimes we think, if I grew up in Jamaica. If you guys are thinking I have an accent, yes, I do. I'm Jamaican. And I grew up in St. Mary. And, earlier on in that area, the water was not available. So we actually had a toilet outside before we actually got water. And so when I look at where our family, family was a good family, great name family, but still the circumstances were the circumstances. And so that we put one foot in front of the other, that we challenge ourselves, please. That's the biggest thing. Challenge our mind. Challenge yourself. Do something that you never thought you could do. Even if you do it badly, the fact is that you just do it. Just challenge yourself. So, I could go on and on and on about that, Aaron, but it's just the putting yourself, knowing that we're all differently able, as you said, being able to put ourselves out there, being able to find people and situations that will help you to grow to what you want, and keep dreaming. Keep dreaming. As kids, we were doctors, and then in like 5 minutes, and now we're like, oh, it's over. No, it's not over until it's over. So that's where I'll start.
That's well, you've given us quite a bit to start with. One of the biggest things that I think that I really latch onto, it's we're putting limitations on ourselves, and you also said giving ourselves permission. Those two ideas really go hand in hand because the limitation is the lack of permission. I mean, they may not be exactly the same thing, but they really are. They're sort of partners in crime, right?
Yes.
It's like, oh no, I have a limitation because I'm overweight or I'm a little older or, I don't have enough money or like whatever it is. And here you are, a little on the north side of 40 and learning how to ski, listening to all these scary stories. But like having good friends on the outside helps you to cultivate those good friends on the inside, right?
Yes. Yes. It's interesting that you say that. Sometimes we have what I say conned ourselves so many times. New Year's, I'm going to go to the gym. You've only been saying that for 20 years. You know you're not going. Oh, I'm going to whatever. I'm going to travel this year. It's the 10th time that you're saying that. So we forget that we speak and we listen to ourselves. We think that other people are talking to us, but when we speak, we are actually listening to ourselves. So if we have a wonky relationship to what we say happening, then we got to go find those people that we can then say, hey, I want to do this and I don't trust myself enough. And that's not disempowering. That's like really powerful. Like, listen, I don't trust myself that I'm going to do this. And so
Mhm.
I'm requesting your support to hold me to account. Permission. Giving someone else permission to hold you to account because you
Agreed.
said you're going to allow them to. And, I have the thing that I say. And sometimes I roll my eyes when you hold me to account. Like, so that demon just, the demon of, we had a good thing going. We always conned each other. Why are you breaking this up? And so I'm wrestling myself with, all right, fine, almost like a teenager again, which I am, right? So back to what you said is like giving oneself permission to give another even permission to hold you to account, because the word or whatever you say to happen, that can be fulfilled if you have great people around you. Like, I wasn't going to do this today, Aaron, but you asked me, and then because I gave you my word, here we are doing this.
Yes, no, absolutely spot on. I remember one of the Landmark Forum leaders, I think it was Larry Pearson. I was supporting on one of the courses, and he was on a diet at the time, working on his health and well being. And he said, I am not reliable to follow the plan on my own, and I am requesting that you hold me accountable.
Yeah.
And it's like even somebody at like landmark forum leader level, for those of you who don't know, like you have to have your life handled in a particular way and in integrity to even think about becoming a landmark forum leader. And this man who is well versed in integrity is requesting support.
Yeah.
So even the best of us need that help. But I think it's also important to remember, because of the lies that we tell ourselves, like each of us does this with ourselves. So you need to find somebody who really truly is going to honor that request and
Yes.
not duck out so that you duck out when they ask.
Yes. Yes. You know, two things. One of them is from Larry. He says, at some point, your ceiling becomes your floor. And I'm like, huh? So whatever room you're in, whatever space you're in, if you think of it, I'm in a 6-story building. If you're on that first floor, in order for you to go up, at some point, that roof on the first floor will become, that ceiling is the next floor, right? So if you're here financially or relationally or whatever, to get to that next level, you need some support. And I always say to myself, when we start pushing ourselves against the ceiling, before it becomes, it's kind of like you're going down, like pushing back, retracting oneself. Like, I don't think this is such a good idea. But then you give yourself permission to kind of close your eyes. I remember, like, she's like, breathe. I'm like, you cannot breathe in water. Back to the swimming thing. You cannot, and my nose would just not allow me to breathe. And then when I went from the pool and I was breathing in the pool and I went to a bigger body of water, I still could not breathe through my nose. it was another panic thing going on, right? And so, that level that I couldn't, that floor of me not being able to swim, yes, I am now in the water, and I'm not making it all the way down to the other side yet. That will come in the future, but it's giving herself permission to get up there. And I think why Larry or somebody else could do that is because they start playing with a baby step of keeping my word. I'm going to brush my teeth. You know, my dentist and I had a problem, my hygienist, because I never used to like to floss my teeth because it was just too. And we kind of worked it out, and now I am really versed. I even have floss around me everywhere. Flossing my teeth. So to give yourself permission wherever you are, if it's a baby step, start there.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be skiing or something monumental. I mean, really, the idea is start where you are because every master was once a disaster, as the expression goes.
I love that.
And it's like when I have permission to just really be messy about things, it makes all of the difference. I mean, I've said before on the podcast that I've been trying to start this podcast for 5 years. 5 years ago, I bought a book called The Podcast Journal, 50 Days from Idea to Launch. And it's been 5 years. Because every time I would go through that dumb little book on about day 15, 16, when I'm starting to get other people involved, all of a sudden I'm chickening out and running the other way. And, you know, I can't point to any one thing that was the difference that got made that had this time be the one that is working out. I've got 12 episodes published right now, and I have to keep congratulating myself because this is extraordinary. And, it's like, well, it doesn't look like much. Oh, you have no idea the demons that come up. Like, and whatever that is for you, whatever that is for anyone who's watching or listening, doesn't matter where you are. You're never going to get there if you don't start somewhere.
Somewhere. And Erin, something that you just said that I have these little Craig things that I do. Quirky stuff. So if I'm like really stressed, I'll look for some metal surface to go put my hand on because I think it takes me out of my head. Just to be in touch with something colder outside of my brain.
Hmm.
I'll wiggle my toes around and I heard there's a book on this. I was surprised when I was sharing with somebody. I wiggle my toes around in my shoes, and I was a cadet in high school, so the seam of my pant, I'll play with those just to get myself from out of this frustration. So something that you said that reminds me of one of my other things is when you accomplish something, celebrate it. I think we have this tendency. Oh, I'm so. If I ask people what are your weaknesses in an intake, oh my goodness, the floodgates are open. What are you gonna? Oh, 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 oh. Or if we did something that didn't go the way we wanted to, oh my goodness, the lament, the sharing of everybody. Oh, I messed up, and then we close the door and we cry and we binge and we whatever we do to do that. But I'm like, can we celebrate when we accomplish something like a podcast, like people are benefiting from it? Like, could you really give yourself a few days of celebration too? So I tell people like celebrate the wins, not just the beat up that we do ourselves. So thank you for reminding me. That's one another great thing that I have that I do. And
Well,
you're
and
right. Go
one
ahead.
of the things that is vitally important with that, and this is one of those places that I always used to fall short, is I would think that I needed to wait until the entire thing was done before I could celebrate. I ain't never gonna get there if that's the bar.
No, no. And one of the things that we also say is like perfection is death. Anything that's perfect, you can't do anything with it. No,
Yes.
so if we know we have AI, and we've just tipped the surface of it. So are you gonna stick to what you're doing if something better comes along? No. And you're thinking about your audience, and when you review what you do, the things that you could make a difference based on the feedback that you get, you're gonna do that. So
Yeah.
it's always gonna be evolving. The other 40 thing that I have is I got to the doctor, and he said to me, 40. He started using words that were almost like a foreign language to me. One was blood pressure and cholesterol. And I'm like, I've been going to the doctor for years. Like, what are these things? Like, I've heard them before, but I have no idea. It just never was important to me. And I remember just saying to myself, 40. I'm like overweight. I'm like, man, I guess this is what it looks like at 40. And I'm like, huh. And I'm like, no, 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 no. And I started doing what I needed to do to get the weight in check. I did the blood work. I asked him what the numbers meant. I came home. I did certain things. I went back to him, like, do my blood work again. I want you to compare them. I want to know if I'm on the right track. I mean, the assistant, she's like, who are you? I'm like, how do I know if it works, if what I'm doing is working? So again, to have people dump their opinions. Somebody was sharing with me recently that their mom went to the doctor and they told her she had Parkinson. And she says, no, doctor, not me. No, 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 no. Wrong diagnosis. I do not. And her, she lived without Parkinson. Like, there's no physical whatever until she died. So, the again, the training of the word, the power of the word, the power of learning how to say what there is for you to say, independent of what people want you to say, what people think you should say, whatever think you should say. But the training, the form leaders, that's where they start. My sister and I laugh. I used to have this thing when we were kids. I put my sisters on a step and I said, close your eyes. Imagine. I've never traveled before. I've never been on a plane. I was in my teenage years. And I'm like, imagine we're packing our bags. Yeah, we're getting excited. And we're packing our bags. We're going to the airport tomorrow. We can't sleep through the night. And then I'll peek. And if they're not close your eyes. And I'd have them close their eyes. And they're like, come on. And then we're packing our bag and we're going to the airport. And we're getting excited. No, I've never heard anything about visioning. I've never heard anything of manifestation. I didn't know any of that type of stuff. And I remember one day, I think my sister and I were taking 3 flights, and we looked at each other, and she's like, dude, who are you? Because we were envisioning this thing, no money. I don't think I had a passport. I don't, well, I wouldn't have a visa at the time either. And I did not see financially how that was going to even work. So again, dream dreaming is free. It really is free. It's free. So dream. If you have stopped dreaming, start dreaming again. I had a friend of mine I was talking to him. He's a doctor, and we had lost touch. And I said to him, "So, buddy, hey, what's up?" He has two daughters, and I said, "What's going on with you?" And he said to me, "No." I said, "What is one of your dreams?" And he's like, "Right now, a box of cereal on the sofa would be great." And I thought to myself, this guy is so stressed by the demands of his life right now that he's not even present to his dream. And so I changed the question. And sometimes changing the question is important. I said to him, when you were a kid, what were some of the things that you dreamt about? And he says, traveling. And I said, where? He said, anywhere in Europe. I said, what country? He says, Italy. I said, where? And he started coming alive again about that dream in that moment. And I'm listening. So I'm listening for it, and I'm going to hold him to account. I'm going to keep on feeding it so that he actually fulfills a trip. But sometimes we're disconnected because of the minutiae and the different things of life. Being a parent, not being a parent, too old, no money, that we have stuffed our dreams or numbed ourselves from dreaming. And if you're listening to this and you're one of those people, so cut it out.
You heard it from Craig. You better watch out. He'll come get you. Well, one of the things that I love about you that, I mean, for as long as I've known you, that has always been very present is your energy. Just like that level of emotion and that level of engagement and that level of connection. How do you keep your energy so up and open?
You're trying to get me into the so it's Craig quirkiness. So one of the things that I really used to do, And every time I talk about it, I'm like, I need to do it again, like one of those dreams. I used to hug myself. I
Oh,
love
wow.
you. I love you. Oh my God. I kiss myself. I thought it was just weird, but I used to do it in college. And I'd sit down at times and I'm like, man, we have touched so many things, done so many. Oh, and I'm like, don't get jealous. I love you equally. And then I look down on my legs and I'm like, oh my God, we have walked so many places and done so many things. Thank you for like bringing me. And I just kind of celebrate myself and my body, just like sitting down and just touching them and just being happy about the fact that they work and that we have covered so many things. And then the other thing is gratitude. Living in America for me was a dream one time. Like, and so sometimes when I'm driving on the 95, I stop and I'm like, I've been here for 20 years. I still, man, you live here. Wow, you actually live. Because we forget. We forget the things that we've accomplished. We take it for granted. Then it's like we displace that type of celebration of the thing that we had because we have it now. As a kid, you have that white shoes and you want to keep it white and keep it not crisp. I see my son do it, and no creases in it, and then get it dirty a few times, and it's like whatever now because it's broken in. But I think
Mm,
even the broken in to celebrate, and I think the celebration of the accomplishment that it reminds you that you are competent of accomplishing the next thing, and so I keep that in place for myself, and I really know that my life is not just for me. I think we're here for each other, and I really believe when I travel, I take pictures of plants for my mom. My
oh,
sister loves cactuses, so wherever I see one, I send it to her, makes her smile, and I really try my best to bring people with me when I go somewhere. And I believe in first taking care of yourself. So my mom, she'll come home and she'll hear me because she lives with me sometimes. And she'll say to me, "You're here laughing by yourself?" And I'm like, "Yes, this movie is
I
hilarious." You know, Homestead is, I don't know, about an hour away from here, but I'll get into a car and go to Homestead, go buy a milkshake, which at the time was $5, and there's $10. I bought one last week because it reminds me of being a child. I call that soul food, the food that we ate when we were young, that brings us comfort, that brings this kind of nostalgic, safe thing. And that milkshake reminds me of that. So I jump in my car, it's more in toll, more in gas to get that milkshake. And that's me saying, I'm celebrating you and what you want. And I'm
wow.
like, I'm taking a shower today, I'm changing my bed linen, I'm putting on all white, and I'm just hanging out in my bed today. That fulfillment. And I don't do it all the time because I'm always doing something, but I never forget to honor me, to listen to me, to get connected with what's going on with me. And I think, but the number one is like my life belongs to the community. And so I take care of me, and I'm a demonstration of that which I want people to see as possible. So that helps.
Well, that's, first of all, thank you. I mean, that was deep and genuine. So, wow.
I didn't mean to cry in your podcast,
Well,
man.
hey, I've got a box of tissues here because that's just, yeah, no. If I'm not crying at least once an episode, I'm not doing it right.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that it's absolutely beautiful because it's, if we aren't able to love ourselves and fulfill ourselves, then other people won't be able to either. And it's something that we hear said so often: other people can't love you if you don't love yourself. So what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is like you really live those principles, and that's a
Celebrate it.
beautiful thing. And what you say about being there for the community, number one rule on an airplane: put on your own oxygen mask first. If you aren't set, if you aren't strong enough or capable enough, if you want to help the poor, well, you might need to think about not being one yourself. You can help more people when you have the resources to be able to dip into. Those are energetic and emotional and spiritual as well as physical resources. It all counts. And
And
so,
and a good place to start is that you can breathe. People are like,
yes,
oh, I don't have money. You don't understand my. I don't, and I'm not saying that I do, and I'm not trying to discredit your experience. But you're already winning than the person who isn't breathing. There's so many people who are on oxygen tanks and wish they could breathe. You can breathe.
yes,
I deal with the people with disabilities. You got legs or you can see. I mean, on the ski slopes, I saw these people in these makeshift wheelchair ski things. Just I didn't even know that was possible. But just start where you are. And I tell my son, there's so much about my son. I love being a dad. I love being a dad. Well, one, he's on the road and he says, "Oh, Daddy, I feel sorry for this person. They're homeless." And I'm like, "Don't feel sorry for them." I'm like, "What are you going to do about it? Are you going to start a food drive at school? Are you going to get some friends? Are you going to donate some of your stuff? Are you going to get some stuff from the family? What are you going to do about it? People really don't need your sorry for."
right.
And I'm like, you have compassion, and yeah, you're feeling, and you kind of see it, and it impacts you. Great, but like, what are you going to do about it? And when I live my life in service of him, I don't say I live my life for him. I live my life for several things, but in service of who he is, I become transformed. I remember one time, his mama just, I'm going all over the place with these stories, but his mama just left for the military, and it was me and him. And, his grades were not doing so well at school. And man, I'm Jamaican. Jamaican, you just get a hit, or you get it straighten up, or you talk sternly, get it right. And I just paused for a little bit, and I have training for this. I don't want to make it seem like I'm some evolved. Oh, this just came. I actually learn and fall forward and fall backwards and fall and grappled with. And but when I got to the point, I'm like, what if this was about him and not me? And what I noticed was that his mom was gone for the military. I was the only parent, and so I couldn't afford for them to think I'm not doing a good job. So now your grades are not even about him. It's about me looking this particular way because of the grades. And I'm like, wow, what if it wasn't about you, Mr. Jerk? And I call myself jerk. I don't feel discouraged by it, but it reminds me to be responsible for that. I become a jerk sometimes, be responsible for it. And I said, what if it was about him? Like, what would be required? And I remember looking at him and saying, no, I look at the situation and I'm like, he needs support at school. What can I do to empower that? And what I was doing was checking assignment on Friday morning. So I wouldn't check anything until Friday. And then we're getting out the door. I'm trying to get him to eat. I'm trying to get to school. I'm frustrated. So it is what it is. You're going to take it like it is. Let's go. And I'm like, what if you just carve some time on Wednesday so you do it twice a week? Just one more time. Twice a week. That altered everything.
Mm.
And if it wasn't for him, I would not have that opportunity as a human being to think. And now I'm kind of thinking, what if it wasn't just about me? What if it was for the other person? Why are you making it so much about you? Has made such a difference. And his mom and I, we're divorced, and we would not have been friends had it not been for him, because I would have no interest in being kind, friendly, or loving towards her. There's a communication course leader one time who said something to somebody. So yeah, you're divorced, and they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's like, what was again your word in the matter? He's like, to love, honor, and cherish until death do you part. And he's like, do you know that you can still do that in a divorce? And I'm like, oh, yeah. I was like, wow, wow, right? And I remember the earlier days, and it was just like we were just, like just horrible. And now I have a key to her place. She was remarried. I still was able to show up and met her new husband. I have a key to her parents' place. I'm going there for dinner once I'm done. Then I'll be there, and then she'll find out I'm there, and she'll call and say, "What are you doing at my parents' house?" And I'm like, "If you keep talking, you will not be allowed back here." And then her parents will laugh in the back, and I started saying, "I'm like, if I really then love my son, then I probably should have an interest in the relationship with his mom and them." And so now I'm like, "Oh, okay." So now, how is the temperature in that relationship? How can I empower that relationship? Because it does impact my son that I say I love. And so, this kind of being a parent for myself has been a gift to me for my own personal development. Because every time I look and it's not about me, and this is another reason, like living for somebody else, it really gives me again that encouragement. It gives me that energy to kind of see things different ways so I can navigate and find myself empowered in doing it. So, yeah, a little bit about that.
Finding a middle way, a happy medium, a place to be able to have it all.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
tear the
start,
script. Whatever
yeah.
script that we have that, there's one that I was about to post this the other day, because it just kind of was just, man, I just wanted to sack it to a friend, right? And it says, don't give energy to people who are not getting back to you, or people who are, whatever. But it was one of those type of, if they don't contact you, they don't read your messages, just don't do it. Leave them alone. And and there's some wisdom to that. I'm not saying there isn't any wisdom, and it's a personal, looking for yourself. But there's a book that says when you know better, you do better. And sometimes you have more capacity in some areas. I have a friend, her name is Carol. We went to college together. And she has been this demonstration for me. We've left college over 20 something years. But no matter where she is in the world, she always calls me. And she's a Christian, so she said, Jesus is coming. Remember that. And before you go, do you want to pray or do you want me to pray? And she never ever have any attitude about it. I hardly ever call her. Every time she comes, I'm like, man, I was gonna call her. Oh my god, I said I was gonna do better this time. But she's just it really is, I'm discovering this thing called unconditional love. Like really discovering it, because I have no idea what that means. Like, I will love you, Erin, because I did have a bachelor's in psychology and I should know better. Or I'm gonna love you because I've done some courses and some training, so I can love you a little bit more than you can love me. And my love is so conditional. Or I can love you because you love me, or I love you because it's all this because. But
Mhm.
what if I and so I'm in this school discovering this thing called unconditional love. What capacity can I develop while I'm on this planet inside of that world of unconditional love? And I'm gonna mess up. It's not gonna be good all the time, and maybe more often than not. But I wonder, where can it take me? How can I be impacted by that space? Because for me, it's a space. It's a what I call a black hole. And in a black hole, there's no beginning, there's no end. There's like, I'm gonna call it that because I have no word for it. But yeah, so people and those situations allows me. I've noticed for myself to grapple with and to discover love. What is it? And I think we know it. Oh no, no, wait, let me speak for myself. I have no idea. It sounds like a good thing, and I've flavors of it and sensations of it and feelings about it. But what about the hard time when you just stepped on my toe the fifth time and I talked to you before? There's a form leader, and he said his mom would say, you probably heard the story. His mom was remarried and her husband had dementia, and she would say quite often, what time is it? And without losing any compassion, without losing her temper, without losing her wits about her, she would reply. And she then said, every time you ask me the question, I can see my husband.
Mm.
The other time is the dimension, everything, but every time you ask me, he's there in that one moment. And I'm like, I'm not there. I would have been like, oh, or some version of it, right? But that we have those teachers, Buddha, Christ, whatever you call it to be, that demonstrate for us. So why not us being a demonstration of
Mm.
what's possible rather than a reaction all the time? Because
Mm.
I'm not saying we won't react, but a reaction all the time. I call it being positional. I'm not even right. I'm righteous, and you cannot move me. You know, if you think of a toy car, I tell people I'm a toy, the steering from a toy car in a ship. So to get that to turn, you have to turn to even start getting me to shift.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, the work to be done to give yourself again that word permission to not get it right, permission to want to aspire for it, permission to worship, permission to thanks, permission. And it sounds almost juvenile, but when I gave myself permission to worship, I'm like, but he knows everything about me. So why am I going to feel guilty or ashamed or hide? Or, I mean, he already knows. So since we're already here, let's just worship. Why not? And I'll move myself to the back so I wouldn't distract anybody else because I'm like, this is my time with you. So it's like it sounds kind of weird as I'm saying it out, but literally saying I give myself permission to feel, I give myself permission to be vulnerable, I give myself permission to be resilient, I give myself permission to hurt, to
Yeah.
cry, because the myriads, the plethora of emotions, if you want to really experience them, you got to experience all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And give yourself permission to cry on camera.
Yes.
Well, and another thing is like giving yourself permission to be happy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
super valuable because so many of us think that we need to tamp down our enthusiasm to sort of turn our volume down because somebody else isn't doing so well. One of the things that Abraham Hicks often says inside of the law of attraction is you can't be sick enough to help somebody else be well. And
Mm.
I love that one because it's like we think that if we can make ourselves poorer, we can make ourselves sadder, or we can make ourselves a little worse off, it'll give a little extra for the other person. And it's actually very much the opposite. It's when I am overflowing and abundant and I am generating that it's filling that space and it's overflowing to be a gift and a treasure to others.
Wow. I have a picture this morning that I'm like, maybe I'd share that on Facebook. It's not one of those pretty nice pictures that we have, but I'll see if I find it here real quick since you said what you just said. Um, I'll just share in a family chat. I have a family chat with my son and his mom and all of us. So hold on, I almost have it. I don't know if you were able to see it, but if you are able to, oh, probably not, the clear. But it's a picture. It's kind of like not able to see it. But that's my living room.
Okay.
And on the floor is my sister. And on my sofa is my other sister.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because when I just moved in, people who travel from another country, there's almost this burden to want to send everything back to your family. You want to give them, and, they're looking towards you and you play that role and it becomes a position that you're stuck with. And I would just feel horrible that I couldn't send whatever money that I think I should send because it was a thing to do. And I said to myself, but what about having a space here where I am comfortable? There's not a landlord, and then they can come and stay regardless and not be worried about anything. And it was what you said. It was like I just envisioned myself with a bucket with holes in it, like everything got thrown in it, just kept on leaking out, and I was no good for them. And I had guilt, but I'm like, they're fine and they'll survive, and they don't need anything. But I was going to obligate myself.
Mhm.
And so when I, a couple years ago, I have a two-bedroom, but I had my sisters, two of them, no, three of them. My dad's daughter was here, to her daughter, my mom, and we're sleeping all over the place. And it was just this freedom and this love that if I had what you said, dumb down, kind of obligate to the nuances, that wouldn't be possible. And they don't tell me when they're coming. I'm at the airport, I'm coming. Hey, come on, come on. And they have that freedom, and there's no restriction, and there's not this So, as you overflow, there's definitely that abundance that becomes available to them, and everybody's thriving. So, as you said, that I saw the picture with everybody sleeping even on the floor, which is one of my favorite spots, by the way.
Yeah.
It's what you said.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I'm reminded of a definition that I heard a couple of weeks back of love, because we think that love is this, Cupid, Valentine, I've got to like you, and it's got to be all fluffy and kumbaya, and yeah, screw that shit. It's the definition that I heard was loving someone means that you want them to flourish.
Mm,
And like,
mm.
I can want the people that I really hate to flourish just so that they're living a good existence and getting the heck out of my hair if that's what it means. But it's like when I started taking on, like really exploring that definition, it gives me the freedom and the permission, as we're talking about, to be with people however they show up. Because however they're showing up, whatever they're dealing with, even if they're getting it on me and spilling it over, it's it's like, okay, great. So like you say, how can I be in service? How can I be a contribution? It's not my responsibility, it's not my fault. It may or may not be something that is really inside of my circle of concern, but that doesn't mean that I can't still love that person and want them to have a wonderful life, a fulfilling life, whatever that looks like.
I have a term. I have many different, as you can tell by now, I got all these little things that I create for myself. But I thought about something one day that I call the rest stop.
Mm.
And what I call the rest stop is that person who feel that they're unlovable, that person who is in a cycle of whatever that cycle is. They're just
Mm.
in a cycle. And everybody around them kind of writes them off. Everybody kind of gets used to them and kind of tolerate them. And they actually do that one trick pony thing, right? And they just keep on doing it. And then they meet you and it doesn't phase you. And they're like, okay, this is not what? And they keep on doing it again and it doesn't phase you. And they keep on doing it again, it doesn't phase you. And in that moment, they're realizing that the thing that they're doing isn't working. And I think they have a moment to stop. Why
Mm.
isn't it working? Why do you like me? Why are you still here? Why are you? Da, 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 da? And in that moment, I call it a gap becomes available where it was just automatically where they are. Because sometimes we think, even choice that, oh, that person have a choice, but are they aware of the choice that they have? Are we
Mm.
really, and even us, because we think that we have, but are we really aware? Because I think if we were aware, like really aware of the choice and connected to the fact of that awareness, we would have access to a lot of things. So I think when you find that person that they have no more trick to play and you still can love them unconditionally, they rest and they're able to have access to different ways of being and acting and looking, and I think it really gives them the space to grow. And I think it's one of the biggest gift that we can. I'm not saying it's easy. My mom lived longer away from me than she lived with me. I have this one story I love to tell everybody about. So she comes from Jamaica, and there's this idea that because I'm her son, I'm supposed to do everything that she wants me to do. And so I took her to my place that I get my milkshake. And she saw honey, like this organic honey, and she bought it. She was on the phone with her friend, and she told her friend about it, and they had a great conversation about this honey. And I'm kind of knowing, the person who was going to send that honey in her mind is me. So I'm like, it's not going down that way. So we got to the house, and she started like, oh, the post office. Man, she's not working, right? The post office, man. Can you send? I'm like, can you send out honey to my friend in New York? I'm like, no. And she went to Jamaica. She was gone for about 6 months. But long story short, that honey took a year to go to New York because I was insistent that she was going to send it. And it wasn't. because I couldn't do it. My mom had this fear that she was in a new country that she couldn't do and she was less capable than. And it was so easy, Erin, so many times to like, it's your mom, just do it. Like, what's the big deal? What is it going to take out of you?
Mm.
But and she took it one time and she said, "Oh, my friend's guilt trip. My friend's daughter is gonna take me because she knows I'm new and I don't know how to get around." And I said to her, "It could have been God who tell you to tell me. I am not sending it, right?" And then she sent it. That she actually figured out a way and she sent it. And then it took me about 2 years to get my mom to. My mom is 62. She's not old, so it took me 2 years to get her to download the banking app on her phone. I gotta go to mom. You don't need to go to the bank to do it. Just I know she lives on it, and so I'm in Cuba, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my God! If I didn't do those things that she considered was unloving, I could not leave her and go to Cuba. She would not know how to function." But because I was able to kind of, you talk about the love, watching her flourish, like you could see it on her face now. She goes to the bank and she knows her own people, and oh, something is in my account. I think my account is violated, and she gets around and she does. And, you know, even her speaking up, she was at work one day when she had just moved here. My mom cares a lot about what people say. I inherited it. So that's why when I can say no, no has been a big deal for me. But she comes back and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna quit this job because they're not talking to me nicely." And she's a Christian; she doesn't like curse. I said, "Mom, I shut. First of all, I shut up until she asked me for my opinion." I said, "If I were you, I would tell them exactly how I feel, including if you have to tell them to f off and walk off." And she goes. So anyway, she quit. She quit the job. But now I can hear her speaking up and asking me for some suggestion, how she's going to handle this and how she's going. So again, that space, what you said about loving, I want to see that person flourishing, is one of the best. And eventually, they'll see it. They're not going to see it right now at all. But eventually, she thanks me all the time, like, "Thank you so much for this." And then I pretend like I don't care, but I'm like, "Thank God."
Well, it kind of circles back to what we were talking about earlier, where when you ask someone to support you with accountability, you need to make sure that that person isn't going to buckle and give in. Because when you get to the edge of the cliff and it's time to jump off into the water, I'm not going to want to do it. Like, that's when the encouragement and sometimes a swift kick in the ass would really be beneficial.
You're right.
So yeah, sometimes it really is a much more challenging thing to do to support someone in the way that's going to benefit them in a longer term.
Especially longer term, that you actually see them thriving and
Yes.
independent. And man, I think it's my drug of choice, if there was one, that people get that haha and they can see for themselves and they're empowered to move forward. It just really makes the biggest difference.
Well, because then, as the expression goes, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
And it's easier said than done, because
Yes.
I cannot tell you how the retaliation and the guilt trip and how I had to deal with myself. Again, the
Yes.
permission. Am I being a bad son? When she tell my sister, what are they gonna think? Maybe I'm too hard. Oh my God, I feel badly. Maybe I should give in. And I go through this mental, but then, I think about what I want for her and how I want her to be. And that makes a world of difference. So, a nice thing to say, teach a man to fish, but, let's go do the homework for the kid. Come on. All right, I'm not. Let me, Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, fine. Okay. So it takes something to really stand, and again, to find that person who's willing to stand with you or for you in that moment when it's time to jump.
Yeah. And what you pointed to just a moment ago, knowing why. Why are you choosing this? Why do you feel and or believe that this is the best course of action? Because when I am really clear on my end game and how I am choosing to be in service of someone else, usually you want to have a conversation with the other person to find out what they want and see if it's in alignment.
Hmm.
And if you agree that it's an alignment, then like to be the tough guy can be a challenging position, but ultimately really beneficial and a blessing for both.
Yeah, yeah. And the other part of that is like sometimes people cannot see the expansiveness of their greatness, and sometimes you can, and you holding that for them when they cannot yet, like kids, when they cannot yet see it. I remember one of my son was reading. He's like, "Daddy, what's this word?" I'm like, "I don't know. Call it out." And he's like, "I can't." I'm like, "Okay, you'll figure it out." So then I heard him teaching his cousin one time how to read, and he's like, "No, you should call it out." And I'm like, "Oh," it's like I can't tell you. So those things that you can see that you can gift other people, those are like really, really great gifts to give. And every time we hold ourselves back because of whatever the reason is, or we're trying to, you know, work it out ourselves. I was installing some hurricane-proof windows and door, and it took about 3 years, and I was really upset about it. And I wanted somebody to pay, and somebody was going to pay. I was going to vindicate myself. That's what I was looking for. And it got down to the wire after 3 years. They finally got to the part where now I needed to sign off on it. And I'm like, I don't think it's fair to sign off on this, given what they should wait for me now. This is what I think should happen. And I got on the phone with one of the agent, and I'm like telling the story, and it was like almost this voice says to me, "You always tell your mom, let vengeance be God. No, be a good time for you to practice that. You're holding on
Mm.
to this one way too tight, buddy." I was actually sitting here. It was like somebody was talking to me. You're holding on too tight to this one. And I was like, you see, I like to do that. Okay, fine, fine. I want just send the paperwork. Let me sign it. Let's just move on. And the next day they said, "Oh, that paperwork got expired. That paperwork was expired. So they had to read something else and a higher interest rate." And I'm like, I'm not even looking at that. And then the lady who was kind of like, "Oh, we need to get this because I'm going to send it to collections." I'm like, I'm not intimidated by your collection, but she was kind of like that stern. And she calls me after this because it was their fault that it took so long. So that contract expired. And she's like, "Okay, don't sign anything. Wait, just wait until Monday." And she called me on Monday. She said, "Oh, there's an original company that was in Florida that moved out that gave you a 3 point something percent. They're coming back, or they're actually back. I'm going to go talk to them to see if they will And she did. And so my interest rate went from 8% to 3 point something percent. And I'm saying to my friend I was on the ski trip with, like, "Man, I want to pay this off." And he's like, "Buddy, go online and look up the consumer price index. It is at 3.9 something when we looked at it." He's like, "That's higher than the interest rate that you're paying, which means that's a good debt. Which means that if you're going to pay that off, use that money and invest it somewhere else so you can higher interest rate and use the term of that." Look, but that voice of just like not taking matters in our own hands that way in that moment was so surreal for me because I wanted my pound of flesh. I was going after. So, I get that was a fit. So, there's a document that says mastery is when you reliably catch yourself at that which you fail to practice.
Mm.
So it's catching
Mm.
yourself. "Oh my God, I failed. Okay, okay. What can I? Oh my, I fail at that. Oh, I. That's a master. It's not the catching yourself. It's not that you do it perfectly, but that you can now catch yourself. Whether it's the fifth time or the 10th time, maybe it's 30 seconds versus 5 minutes. Celebrate to what you said again. Celebrate the wins because those are important.
Absolutely. I was talking with a friend once, and we were talking about faith because, like, really, faith is giving it up. And I told her, to me, faith is I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I know it's going to be okay.
Yep. But that's what it is. That's what it is. I love it.
Sometimes you just have to give it up and know that you are not the one that is steering the ship at this particular moment in time, and it's fine.
Yeah. And there's a wisdom in that,
Yes.
and
Yes.
again, you know, s- get connected to yourself and to your body where you can feel, oh, this is either a familiar space or not a familiar space, or this is not something I want to be hanging around with very long. This doesn't feel like home. So I think we need to start like discovering when you're home, like, and
Mm.
another thing I do, sometimes I scan my body when I lay in bed. I'm like, oh, let me see, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm scanning. you
I
know Scan, and yeah, this doesn't feel like home. This is uncomfortable for me. This doesn't resonate with me. I'm gonna give myself permission to move away. Like some of this conversation with you, I probably wouldn't share with everybody. They said don't cast your your pearls before swines, and not like a bad person, but if they can. So there's certain places I'll go quiet. I'll listen because I know that me saying something may not contribute or move something forward. My son tells me these different stories, and sometimes I train myself. I'm like, okay, not poker face, not too excited, appropriateness, appropriate, and you kind of work myself around. What would it? Oh, okay, how do I manage my response to this so he's not embarrassed, or he won't not talk to me anymore? I'm too excited about this, or it's in that moment asking what would that look like in that moment rather than prefabricated how I should be.
Right.
And so far, he took his mom's car one night. He stole it. That's what I told him. So I was at his house dropping stuff off. He's 16, and he comes around the corner with this car, and he doesn't expect me to be there. And I'm talking to myself, shut up, shut up, shut up, don't say anything, don't say anything, because anything you say right now would not be the thing to say. So I'm in my head, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. And he walks up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. And he comes in and he's with a friend. And I'm like, does your friend know how to get home? He's like, I might get in the car. You go to your bed. We'll talk about this tomorrow. And his mom is like, oh, I can't believe you make your, to the friend, you make Craig took the car away. His name is Craig as well. And I'm like, you can't blame this kid. That's not his responsibility. You can't put it on him. And I took the next day thinking to myself, how do I respond? How do I respond to this? What would educate him, have him deal with the impact that's not okay, and not have him be embarrassed and empowered and educated? And the whole day, like, it really was one of the big things on my mind.
Mm.
I'm like, well, maybe we should start with the legal stuff. That's just black or white. So I went online, I found an article, and I shared it. And I'm like, you guys should read this to him and his mom. And then it came to the time that we had to talk about it. And now I didn't know how to talk about what I'm going to say, but I did remember saying, what if you listen first? Just ask him what happened. Like, what went down? Why would he do that? And I was like, what happened? And he told me what happened. You know, and I'm like, well, I get it. And you actually stole your mom's car, and that's never okay. And, we went through the whole conversation. And when we're done, I said, okay, so you want to go eat? Let's go eat. And we went to go eat. There was no love lost. And my experience was that it was addressed and that it was clear what happened. But I've been discovering again, not taking my love away because somebody transgressed,
Mm.
and I'm doing it for myself as well. So that was like, wow. And even with my mom, we do have opinionated exchange, and I can still pick up the phone and still have the experience that there's that love there,
Mm.
rather than I'm not talking to you, we're going to wait for the energy to go down and then it calm down and then we'll talk.
Mm.
But it's like, okay, we can address it and they may need to address some more later on, but that gap have like weaned a lot. So it's sometimes not knowing what to say. Like this conversation, here we are, just having a conversation. And I think life is more of that rather than when they go off to college, I'm going to do this. And then when they get here, then I'm going to do this. And when I have money, then I'm going to do this. And when I have that, then I'm at 29, I said to myself, if I could go to a country every year on my 2 weeks vacation from work. By the time I'm 40, I would have gone to 10 countries. Oh, that would be amazing, right? So that year I went to Colombia and I went on a cruise to the Bahamas. And I was 30, right? And 31, nothing. 32, nothing. 33, nothing. 34, nothing. So I got to 37. Then I went to Paris and then London and then I went to Amsterdam and Barcelona. And I'm like, oh, every time I go to Europe, I can do 2 countries. So let's do. And 2022, I actually went to 10 countries in that year. And it was, I went to Jamaica 4 times. So, it will be probably six. Well, I went to Mexico City twice. So about 5 new ones. And I'm like, wow, here I was dreaming to get 2 weeks off to go to one country. And in 1 year, wow. And then, oh, I'm not going to, if I can't go for 2 weeks, then I'm not going to go. No, I can make 4 days work. And I hit the ground running. I have a friend who went to Dubai and he said he went for like 30 days and he didn't do half the things that I did in 5 days.
Hmm.
Because, like, we have time, we'll get to it, let's just chill, we have enough time. And then the time ran out and he couldn't get to do half the things. So, this notion of having it all tied up in a bow and fixed and no. Take that first step. Take that first step. If you can't go to another country, go to another city. If you can't go to another city, go to another state. Go somewhere if that's just have yourself have the experience that you can move from where you are to somewhere else.
Yeah.
Celebrate that you move from that room to this room. Yeah. And it's okay, now I'm gonna take on 2 more rooms and go to the other room. Like just move yourself. Yeah.
It's perfect. Absolutely amazing. And we circled right back to where we started with the just get started.
Just get started. Just get
Wow.
started. Yeah. So I celebrate
Well,
you. I celebrate you for having this space. It's wanted, it's needed. There's a lot of conversation happening around the world, but it can be hard to find one that actually contributes. And this has contributed to me.
ah,
So thank you for the opportunity.
I'm so excited to hear that. Thank you. And it has been an absolute pleasure. It's been a few years since I've seen you, and I forgot how infectious your energy is. So thank you for sharing so much of it with us today.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you have been watching and or listening to The Secret of My Success. This is a space, a podcast, a video channel where we explore what it means to live a fulfilling life. I am your host, Erin Curran. Thank you so much for joining us today, and until next time.